Hey guys, my name is Andrew Davidson and welcome back to another As Per My Ability video. If this is your first time at As Per My Ability, we make content about board games, card games, even content about how board games can enrich our lives either outside the classroom, and sometimes we even talk about inside the classroom. If you consider yourself a gamer or a board gamer, if you're new to the hobby, then this is a great channel to check out what's out there and, hear what other people have to say about games you probably haven't heard of. If you're more like myself and you're a veteran board gamer, then this is still a great channel to check out just to see content on YouTube about the one thing that you love, your biggest hobby, which is board games. So no matter if you're new to the hobby or if you're an old fuddy-duddy like myself, As Per My Ability is a good channel for you to keep your radar on because we post content every week. So always make sure to comment, like, subscribe, hit the notification or the bell so you get notifications when we post new content, because we're posting new content every week. And I heard that if you hit the bell, you get 7 years good luck, and we could all use good luck regardless if it's 1 year or 7 years. You can't beat 7 years unless if it's 8 years, kind of like that 5-minute abs, and then someone came out with like the 4-minute abs. Anyways, if you have already subscribed and you do follow the channel, thank you so much to everyone that leaves comments, smash the like button or that subscribes. We appreciate everything that you guys do to help the channel grow. In today's video, we're going to be talking about a historical game, and that game is called the Shores of Tripoli. Welcome back to the program, everybody. It's good to see you. Thank you for clicking on this video, and thank you for spending your time with me today. Now, first things first, I do have some kind of bummer things, some bookkeeping things and promotion that I want to go through before I actually get into talking about the game. I run a series called History in Game, and I've done an actual episode of History in Game about the Shores of Tripoli. The series goes a little deeper into the history. I try to keep it quick. I try to keep it kind of witty. I try to throw in a little bit of my own charm into the audio files. There is a new segment of the Shores of Tripoli over at my friends at the Level Up Board Game Podcast. I know I've been plugging them quite a bit lately. At least there's been 2 videos in the last month I've been talking about them. So this is your last one, like Patrick. So the Level Up Board Game Podcast, wherever that is, you want to go over there and check out their content and listen to what those guys are doing, what they're, reviewing, the games that they're bringing out, and also you get to listen to my voice and hear my history and game segments. So stay tuned with what those guys are doing. But also, more importantly, let's say you just want to hear the history in game aspect. Maybe you don't, for whatever reason, don't want to listen to the Level Up Board Game Podcast. I don't know why. The guys are fantastic. They run a fabulous show. But maybe you just want to listen to that. So what I've done is I've taken all of my history and game audio files and I've put them on the website, or I should say I will be putting them up kind of slowly to create an audio archive. So if you go to aspermyability.com and you click on audio, you can get to the audio archive where eventually you will have all of my history and game stuff. There might be a few other things that don't fit in that series, but you just have to wait and see what those things are when they come out. But primarily the history and game stuff, if you want just that and you don't want to like search for it and look for it on someone else's website or somewhere else, then check out aspermyability.com. History and Game is a series that I do where I talk about games that are historical games, like the one that we're talking about today. As I said, I have an episode already. It's called The Porch Pirates of Tripoli, and you can listen to that on aspermyability.com. If you want to get into deeper into the history of the game, not of the game, but the history of the theme of the game, I also try to add in some witty stuff. I try to be kind of charismatic and charming about it. So I talk more about the history. I give more reviews because I don't really review a whole lot on this YouTube channel, but I get deeper into actually providing an official review. And yeah, that's what you get. You get your history, you get a game that goes along with it. I've done history and game from the Shores of Tripoli all the way up to the moon with the Apollo space mission. If you're a history guy or gal and you're a board game guy or gal, it's the perfect amalgamation. It works like a podcast where it's got an RSS feed, so you can just click on it and listen to the episodes as if they're just like a podcast. You can subscribe. I highly recommend you subscribe so that your phone with the feed will tell you when I do actually put up new episodes, because I'm going to be releasing them not all at once, but just kind of once in a while. And I've also told the Level Up guys that I will give them priority. They will get the new content, and then a month or two later, it will end up on my website. It's just an agreement that we had. So just how it is. Now, unfortunately, because I do have an episode of History and Game about the Shores of Tripoli already, I'm not going to get into the deep history of this game. So today, I'm just going to give just a little smidge of history, just so you know what the heck this game is about. But that's about it. Mostly, we'll be just talking about the gameplay, and I'll give you a little bit of my thoughts about it. The Shores of Tripoli takes place from 1800 to 1805. Now, America had just become America. We had just beat Great Britain, or the British, in the Revolutionary War, and we had become our own nation, the United States of America. Unfortunately, this created a problem for Thomas Jefferson and his Navy, because as colonists, we were under the protection of the British. And so we were protected from the Tripolitan pirates. I'm going to try not to Tripolian over my words, because that's kind of a hard one for me to say. But we were protected because we were like Vanderlei. We were big into import-export. Big import-export kind of guy. We'll see if anyone gets that reference. And so now that we didn't have the cover of Great Britain to help our ships, the British basically told the pirates, go ahead, have at them. We don't care. All of our ships were being pirated, basically. And Thomas Jefferson and his Navy had to send some ships to try to deal with the situation that was going on, to try to offer some safety for our ships. The Shores of Tripoli is a two-player only game. One person is going to be playing Thomas Jefferson and the American Navy, and the person across the table is going to be playing the nasty Tripolitan pirates. We're going to do this. It is an asymmetrical game, and what that means, especially for this game, it's not so much asymmetrical in the gameplay, but in the win objectives, because the way that the Americans win the game are different, and there's multiple ways they can win, and they're different than the Tripolitan player wins the game. And again, there's multiple ways in which the Tripolitan player can win. Well, let me show you a little bit about how it looks, and then we'll come back and I'll talk a little bit more, and we'll sign off. Welcome to the Shores of Tripoli. Now in this little tiny breakdown, I'm not going to be going through all of the gameplay and all of the rules, such as how many dice do you roll for this and how do you do combat. But I want to show you the components, I want to show you the game setup, and I also want to talk about the win conditions. So starting from this side over, we have an elongated board here, and this is Algeria and Morocco, and this is Tripoli here, just so you can get a sense of where we are in the world since it's so zoomed in. So this would be the top of Africa right here. So on the left-hand side, we have Gibraltar, we have Tangier, Algiers, Tunis, Malta, Tripoli, Benghazi, Dern, and Alexandria. Now each spot is what's called a port. So every circle basically is a zoomed in version of the port. So that means you can have soldiers and ships in a port. Like Tripoli right here has soldiers and ships, which we'll get to in a minute. The areas out here, these are like sea areas in which you can have people out there doing raids, and you can have ships kind of protecting the harbor. These areas are for ships only, okay? So yeah, so these bigger circles are zoomed in, and these are just open water, basically. So starting over here, we have two players. We have the blue player and the red player. Blue is America, and red is the Tripolitan player or the pirate player. You got your track down here. You're going to be playing through 1801 to 1806 or until someone satisfies their win condition. And you're going to be playing through all 4 seasons in each year. So the American player always goes first, then the pirate player goes, and then you would advance the summer. The American player would go, then the pirate player would go, you would advance all the way until you get to winter. When you get back to spring, then you advance to the next year, which then unlocks any ships that are available. These are ships that are basically kind of under construction. So they're waiting to come out to the board to fight. Up in the corner is where you're going to put just the reserves, all the extra pieces that you're going to be using throughout the game, but this is the game as it is set up. Now players are going to be sitting across the table from each other, but I have the cards laying basically on my side of the table so that I can pick them up and manipulate them. So each player has their own deck of cards with 3 basic face-up cards that can be used almost at any time, unless if there is something on the card itself that says you have to use it in a specific year. You can use these, but they're all one-time things, so then they would be gone. It would cost your turn to use this card, and they would be gone. Then you have your decks. This is the Tripolitan deck. I have the card sleeves, so they might glare a little bit. So that's their deck. This is the Thomas Jefferson, obviously, is the American deck, and they also have their 3 face-up actions that they can do that work the same. They're one-time effects, and you can only use them once and at a specific time if it says so on the card. America also has 12 gold. This is gold. This is money, even though it's ginormous, but it's money. So the American player is going to take their cards, their gold. They're going to set up their board the way that the board sets up the same every single game, which is problematic for replayability, but whatever. And so the board sets up the same exactly. You've got some, what they call, here, let me show you. Here's a look at a bigger one. These are called frigates. So this is an American frigate, and these are the big guys. And so like here, that go in Gibraltar. The pirates, they don't really have any frigates. They have the opportunity to get some in the game if you get the right card at the right time during the right round or whatever. But they have corsairs, which are tiny ships, and they go in the ports. They can never really go out to sea, or they never end their turn out at sea. And this is basically the main, the hometown, I guess, the headquarters, the HQ. Tripoli right here is what you want to protect. They start with 4 Corsairs, and the squares is just infantry. So they represent some infantry. You start with some infantry in Benghazi and also Dern as well. As the game progresses, obviously the board is going to change and ships are going to move around and there's going to be some fighting involved. And so the game is going to end in one of 3 ways. Either the American player wins, the pirate player, the Tripolitan player wins, or the timer runs out. You've gone through all the time and then the game is just over. There's no tiebreaker. No one wins. No one loses. You just shake hands and say good game, and nobody wins. I don't necessarily really like that, but that's just a personal preference. So those are the way that the game can end. Either one person wins, or nobody's done what they needed to do, which I've never seen happen. I've never seen it come close to ending in a tie, but that's what happens if you run out of time. So on each player's turn, they're going to be playing cards from their hand. You get 1 action, so you just play a card, or you discard a card to do a basic action, and then you go back and forth. My turn, your turn, my turn, your turn, as everything moves forward in time. There's combat involved, which revolves around rolling some dice here. There are some allies in the game. I'll point them out very quickly, but I'm not going to really talk about them. For the pirates, it's the orange spots, which are right here, and there are also orange allies that can join them, the Moroccan pirates. On the American side, there are a couple of yellow, I don't know if you can see this, there's some yellow frigates, and those are Swedish, or Sweden. And so Sweden can jump in and help as an ally for America. And then you have the Moroccan pirates that team up and can be allies. So there are a couple other colors involved. But for the main thing, you're just going to be doing some combat. So let's talk about how the game can end. So that way we can get to what I think about the Shores of Tripoli. The American player can win in only 2 ways. He can one way is he can win by playing a card within his deck that is called, a treaty for peace. And that card can only be played if it is the fall of 1805 or later. And on that card, which is in here somewhere, you have to draw it, has a whole bunch of prerequisites, which I'm not going to go over. Like, for one of the prerequisites is obviously it has to be the fall of 1805 or later. The other one is that there are no allies on the board, or there's a bunch of prerequisites that have to be met for that card to be played and for the American player to win. Honestly, I've never seen a game win with the treaty card. The only other way for the American player to win is when it gets to be a certain time, again within the track, is to basically raid, attack Tripoli, and just decimate its forces. So you basically take out all of just the HQ. So you'll be bombarding the ships and the units and kill everyone there. If you kill everyone in Tripoli, that's the more American violent way of taking care of things, as opposed to the treaty card, which is the more peaceful, diplomatic way of winning the game. So the American player only has 2 ways to win the game. The Tripolitan player has 3 ways in which they can win the game, which is kind of interesting. One of the ways is if they can steal gold. So the gold here, if they can steal all 12 pieces, they automatically win the game. Now, that has to do with raiding, and like I said, I'm not going to get into the specifics of how the boats go out and how you roll and things like that, but they can go out and steal some money or attempt to steal some money. If they steal all 12 gold, game's over. So that's one way. The second way that they can win the game is if they destroy, not just damage, because there is a difference, because damaged ships usually just end up on their side, like that, if they're damaged. But if you actually destroy 4 frigates, American frigates, then the Tripolitan player has won. So you have to destroy these. When you destroy these, you take them as a kind of a souvenir, I suppose, to show that I've destroyed 1. If I get 4 of them destroyed, the game is automatically over. The last way, which is hard to explain because it takes some cards to get this in motion, the last way for them to win is to destroy Hammett's army. Now, what's Hammett's army? You have no clue because it's not even on the board. They are the white, and there's some blue cubes up there. There's a card that the American player can play that creates Hammett's army over here in the blue Alexandria, and they can go about causing havoc and stuff. If you can play a card and destroy, do combat and roll and destroy all of Hammett's army, that's the third way that the Tripolitan player can win. And so that's how you win the game depending on what side you play, and that's the components for the game. There's a lot more, such as raiding, such as bombardment, such as troop movement, and like I said, lots of dice rolling and stuff like that. I'm not going to go into it, but it's a very simple game. You get to do one thing on your turn. You either play a card for its effect, or you discard it to do like a basic action. And that is essentially how the Shores of Tripoli looks. So let's get back to what I think about the Shores of Tripoli. Well, there you have it, everybody. The Shores of Tripoli. Were you impressed? Are you not entertained? I wasn't. So I really wasn't. This game is heavily influenced by 2 other games, which the designer does actually say in his little notes in the game that he was influenced by these games. It's 1960, The Making of the President, and also Twilight Struggle. And Twilight Struggle is a Cold War game, and 1960 is basically a 2-player area control game where one person plays Richard Milhouse Nixon and the other person plays John F. or Fitzgerald Kennedy, trying to run for election in 1960, trying to win the Electoral College. But we're not really going to talk about those games. It's just that this game is a very short version of the other 2 games that I talked about. It uses some of the same mechanics. It's very card driven. There's some multiple win conditions. There's not really multiple win conditions in the other ones referenced, but they're very similar. The difference is that the other 2 games are going to take you an entire Saturday to play, or at least an entire afternoon to play. They're very long, very steep learning curve. They're very difficult to learn. And this game is not going to take you all afternoon. It plays in about an hour or 60 minutes. It's 2 players. It's card driven. It's basically everything you want if you like Twilight Struggle or 1960, The Making of the President. But it's very streamlined. It's very dumbed down. Very easy game to learn. Easy to learn, easy to teach. Takes 45 to 60 minutes to play. That's what it says on the box anyways. And so if you have 2 players that are relatively familiar with the game, I could totally see the 45-minute aspect being relative here. What do I really think about the game? I love the history. I love what's going on. In fact, most people don't even know about what was going on from 1800 to 1805. Nobody knows this story of America. It's even in our military songs. From the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli. I mean, it's in our songs, but nobody really knows. Nobody knows, like, Shores of Tripoli. What is that even? I don't even know. And so kudos to the game for making a game in history that is really specific, really something that you're just going to be like, I don't really know anything about this. Also, number 2, props, is when you buy the game gives you a historical, this is not the rule book. This is what they call a historical supplement book, which is basically like your high school textbook, and you can read through what was going on, everything, year to year, and who the key players were and their names and stuff. That is awesome. Kudos. So 2 kudos to the designer and the producers that made the Shores of Tripoli. Those are 2 things I really, really enjoy. Unfortunately, that's really where the enjoyment stops. Now, I try not to give heavy reviews on my YouTube channel. I try to just kind of put it out there, give you a couple of my thoughts, and send you on your way. I'm going to leave you with a few thoughts anyways. The Shores of Tripoli is a game that you definitely don't really need. I think 1960 and Twilight Struggle are both very fine games to play. They struggle because it takes you forever to learn the game, takes you even longer to play the game. That's a bummer, man. It's just a bummer. It's a bummer. This is a game that's short and easy to play, but unfortunately, it does become very formulaic. And what I mean by that is that the cards are all kind of the same. And so if you get people that know the game and they know the cards that are in the game, not only just in my side or on my side, and what I know the cards that you have on your side, if you get 2 gamers that are really familiar with the game, it becomes formulaic, kind of like how some people play tic-tac-toe. If someone does this, okay, well then I have to do this. And now the player goes, okay, because I did that, then they have to try and do this. And then I respond with, okay, I'm going to try to do this. So it almost becomes A, B, C, D. Like it becomes very formulaic. Now, I've played the game enough. I've played the Shores of Tripoli about half a dozen times. And a few times I tried to break away from the formula, and it just doesn't work. You're going to fall behind, and you're probably going to lose. It's going to be a short game, which I just don't care for. I like to be able to develop and just open up my own strategy and not necessarily be confined to what cards I have in my hand. Okay, can I use them? Is the board in a particular board state that I can use the cards? Because a lot of the cards are very, very specific as far as what they do. When it comes to the Shores of Tripoli, it's a really fast 2-player game that is a competitive game. If that's what you want, this is going to check all the check marks for you. But if you want some sustainability and replayability, this game is probably going to be running its course after about anywhere to 3 to 6 plays. That's just the nature of the beast. So for me, I'm kind of dropped this game like third period French. I just am not going to be really playing the Shores of Tripoli anymore, which is unfortunate because, well, I already gave its praise. So that's everything that I have for you. Those are all my thoughts on the game. If you want a further and deeper review, well, you know where to check it out. As for that, that's everything. The game is called The Shores of Tripoli. My name is Andrew Davidson, and you've been watching As Per My Ability. I look forward to seeing each and every one of you at the next video.